G'day there, my name's Brian Midway from Grace Canberra and Crosslink Christian Network, and this is the final session of 13 different video segments to do with equipping the saints, which we've called Another 2 Yards, basically because we looked at a film clip of Chariots of Fire and saw how Harold Abrahams, who couldn't run any faster, went and got somebody to help him, and the guy that helped him was Sam Musabini, and because of the thing they worked on together, the coach and the athlete, he was able to not only improve but go on to win the 1924 100-metre, 100-yard race at the French Olympics, Paris Olympics. But we're not here to win Olympics. We are here to advance the kingdom of God, and so we've talked about a lot of things to do with, where that equipping comes from and what an equipping model looks like, and examples from the New Testament in things that we need to be equipped in. And there are certain defaults and there are certain things that make it hard to do this. And so, I want to give some kind of idea of where to go from here. Originally this session was Rob and I talking together, and the sound wasn't good, so now it's just me. It really was because there were some things I didn't like what he said, but that's not the truth. So the first thing is that we think that where to from here is in the task of building genuine apostolic communities of more. I know this is going to be so easy to get wrong at this point, but I'm just talking about the fact that, I'll just give you an example. I was talking to a guy who spends a lot of time encouraging and supporting pastors, and he's the one who said that there are very few pastors and leaders of churches who are actually in genuine community, let alone equipping community. So we just go off to conferences and things like that, and we listen to tapes, and we travel here and travel there, but there's no sort of equipping environment. It's not like a footy team where you've got a coach and you've got a bunch of guys who are trying to do better, and they're doing it together and doing it in a team operation. And so what we've found in recent years is that if we gather together as leaders, and I'll just tell you how we started to do this in the city of Canberra, we decided, a bunch of 6 or 7 pastors of churches, that we would gather together and we would take a course directed by the fact that we wanted to give leadership to all of our ministries. And so, so we acted as if we were the leadership group for all of our ministries. So we spent time getting to know each other's ministry areas and churches and things like that. And so we've been meeting every month now for a number of years, and it's called LeaderLink. And the idea of this is actually to provide a community of more. It is a community of more. These people aren't people that I pay. They don't pay me. We don't pay anybody. We're there because we have a complement, an input of leadership that helps us. Now, this isn't, and we do at times coach each other and all those other things. And so if you can think of this group of people and say, all right, what if this group of people now said, let's go get equipping in certain areas. And so we bring in people and they equip us so we can go and equip others. That's the idea of a community of more. It's based on a hunger to be equipped in order to equip. And that's the nature of this thing all the way down the line, all the way across the board. And so we want to see these groups established, and they could be regionally established. I mean, they may well begin in one church, but with the leaders of that church. But this could be a regional thing, or a citywide thing, or whatever, where leaders would come together not just to decide what happens in the city or decide how they do events, but decide to make sure that the saints get equipped for the work of the ministry. And so, if we have apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors and teachers, if there are people who are qualified by God to equip others in those areas because they can do it, they understand it, they can teach it, and when they equip, other people get to do it, and they don't want to do it all, they just want to equip other people to do it, then these people need to be able to move around and provide that equipping. Apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors and teachers. Equipping leaders, and so that's why leadership groups need to sort of look at what their strengths are, where they have these gifts, and so that there's a pool of giftedness here, and that pool of giftedness represents, if they're not, it doesn't matter whether they're apostles or prophets or whatever. It doesn't matter whether they are called by that name or not. The question is whether there is a function there that is equipping saints so that saints are getting to do the work of ministry. Now, one of the ways in which this actually worked in history, or you see an example of it, a couple of ways actually. One was the Wesleyan Revival, because the Wesleyan Revival was built around small groups of people on the whole, meeting in some place with leadership that went, that was local there. But that leadership wasn't necessarily like expert, 4-year trained degrees, Greek and Hebrew. It wasn't any of that. It was actually just competent, godly people who had a function of being able to facilitate ministry and all that sort of stuff. But these groups were served by what in the Wesleyan sense were called circuit riding preachers. Now these circuit riding preachers really had the DNA inside of them of what the whole thing was about, holiness and evangelism, the thing that the Wesleyan Revival was all about, and they came round, and there was a continuity about that. There was a relationship about that. It never really, not until much later on, became tribal and all sort of controlling and all internal and all, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't based on pride and arrogance and all that kind of stuff. It was actually based on providing a leadership support for local people so that they could do, it was an apostolic kind of support. And so I think that kind of thing is a great principle, and if we can just somehow divorce the itinerant great name people from the idea of just coming and doing their 5 sessions and going, to the idea of there being a circuit of places where equipping people come and equip, and where they come back, and where they, where there's an accountability and a mutuality. I reckon we could see some equipping going on that wasn't just a one-off thing, or the shot in the arm, oh that feels good, and off we go and nothing changes. So I believe we could see the beginning of regional groups that were there, where the people were there to support. They weren't there to just do their own agenda and so forth. They were there to genuinely be accountable with the leaders locally to be equipping saints to do the work of ministry. The other group of people in history, which anyone who's talked to me would realise at once, is the Moravians. The Moravians, they had a strong sort of community base. They had strong godly leadership, but it was missional all the time, and there was a great connection between the prayer, the equipping, the teaching, the ministry, backwards and forwards. And so this small community of people produced an amazing force right around the world of godly, wonderful apostolic flow, which has affected. You can't find a part of the church that they did not affect, and they affected it not by owning and controlling and franchising and all those other things. In fact, where are the Moravians today? Maybe in Pennsylvania or one or two other places, but this group of people represented a seed of servant apostolic work that was able to lift people up. And so what I think is that if we sort of go by that chart of saying, right, let's see where the apostles and prophets, evangelists, pastors and teachers are. Let's see them raise up. Let's value what they have. Let's value them not to come and do it all for us, but to come and equip leaders. Let there be an accountability there. And then let that accountability flow over so that saints are being equipped. And the apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors and teachers, along with leaders, are doing this stuff and encouraging and equipping other people to do it. And there is an accountability backwards and forwards. But the real deal is that the saints are doing the work of the ministry. That's the real deal. And I reckon if we were able to develop cluster meetings, regional meetings that were ongoing, we can do the one night, one day, one night, 2 nights in a day sort of thing, Friday night to Saturday night, or some version of that. And we can do this hardcore. We could do that. If we did that in regions, then it's not a great cost. It's not all that sort of stuff. But where we could say, let's work on this until we get better at it, until we see a breakthrough, and let's work on something else till we see a breakthrough, and build equipping leaders or equipping equippers, and being accountable to equip saints. I reckon we could do it.